Oh my. Welcome back to Bloodborne. We are in a very different spot than we were in at the end of the last episode. I would say that things have gotten perhaps a little bit, this is an upsetting turn of events, I'll just say that. Welcome to the lecture building, everybody. Part of a mysterious college. Hello. Do you happen to know where we are?
What a joy it is to behold the divine. It must be such a pleasure. You're in my debt, you know. You're nigh on a beast of the field. But here you are, treading a measure with the gods. Are your feet as fat as your wits? Oh, cease this dithering. Take the plunge. Throw yourself to the wolves.
Sir?
Your feet. Oh, cease.
Sir, are you a spider? That person appeared to be a spider through the door. I don't know if you saw that, but they kind of had the spindly legs of a spider and the head of a Patches. I don't like this game anymore. Can I stop playing this? Can I just let's play the Surge and ignore my let's play of this game? Man, jars full of eyeballs. What is going on here? This is I don't like this. Here comes the spider. No? Just a goopy college student. Okay. Well, welcome to the lecture building, everybody. It's a beautiful place with a chocolate bar for a ceiling. And it appears to be long abandoned. Something happened here that has gotten this place unstuck from reality or something. And, now it's just kind of stuck in its own little pocket dimension. And according to Patches, yes, that is Patches, and yes, he is a spider, we are about to tread a measure with the gods. So great. Looks like we're not the first hunter here either. So, it seems he has fooled a lot of people by telling them about revelations that await them. Oh well. Hey look, whoever was wearing this last flexed so hard that the sleeves came off. I like the look of the college student uniform. It's got a cool like trench coat looking look. Like you put on Gascoigne's hat with this and you're like suddenly a detective. I like this area because it's eerily silent. Other than Jill's footsteps, there's not really any ambience in this area. It's just you and this weird fucking place. The lecture hall does have a second floor, but we don't have access to it yet. We'll visit the second floor of the lecture hall later. For now, it seems that we have entered a frat party. So, maybe let's deal with this room of frame rate destruction. So the college students do a lot of arcane damage, and they get drunk and then vomit everywhere. They're not really all that dangerous. They kind of just slap at you and knock you around. Like, I guess if you stand in their piles of puke, they can kill you pretty easily, but like, they don't do very much damage, which I guess is why they come at you in giant, massive numbers. Like, specifically because, like, what they lack in damage, they make up for in having an education and degree. Or something like that. Oh man, I was kind of hoping he would keep sleeping. Like I was really hoping I wouldn't have to kill that guy, because I know what it's like to fall asleep in class, you know? And then, like, your teacher, like, throws a paper ball at you to wake you up. So what's this? Ugh. Augur of Ebrietas. Augur of Brian. The Augur of Brie cheese, the Augur of Alison Brie, is an item that is kind of like a holy talisman sort of thing that calls forth the power of a mysterious entity known as Brian, or Brietas, I guess. And I don't know, maybe we'll see what it does a little bit later. I don't know if I feel so good about touching it right now. Oh, whoa, wait a minute, that's not outside. Oh. Where are we now? Welcome to the Nightmare Frontier, everybody. The Nightmare Frontier is another dimension. So, that's great. I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit upset about this. Oh my god. Well, okay, I guess we're in the right place to be calling out to God if Patches has anything to say about it. The Nightmare Frontier is our final optional area. This is the only place left for us to explore before we are finally able to get the show on the road. And, well, if those ship masts have anything to, if they're any indication of the type of area this is, things in the Nightmare Dimension don't quite make sense. Or at least they do make sense, but in their own sort of way. Very pretty lighting here too. It's got like this cool like yellow-green kind of lighting with like all of these harsh shadows. I think this area looks really cool. So these enemies are called Lauren Silverbeasts. These creatures running around here in the Nightmare, and it's really interesting. Ailing Lauren Ailing Lauren is oh. Yup, Patches sure is a spider, all right. Fuck that. No, you're not gonna leave him alone. You're okay. I see what you're trying to do, Jill. Come on, go for it. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. You can do it. Yeah, fuck you, Patches. Now who's the one who got kicked into a pit? Well, that was satisfying. Anyway, as I was saying, Ailing Lauren is one of the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne. And what these guys are doing here in the Nightmare world, I don't know. But Ailing Lauren is really interesting. It has its own little story of being, like, overtaken by the Beast Plague before Yharnam succumbed to the Beast Plague. Like, when you visit Ailing Lauren in the Chalice dungeons, it is kind of like overwhelmed by the poison sickness from old Yharnam, the ashen blood and whatever. So, I don't know how these guys got there. I don't know how they got here, but, boy. What you're looking at here is the end stages of man turning into beasts. So if you were wondering what, the final stage of human to beast evolution looks like, well, these electric silver beasts are the ones that show up in Lauren. This area just oozes atmosphere, though. It really does. And it's not just oozing because of those cracked open gravestones that have bloody veins coming through them. Oh. Someone's coming to say hello. Hi. Oh, you're not friendly. So this encounter kind of sucks. You might notice the other guy making his way downtown. Oh, where am I now? You might notice the other guy making his way downtown. There's a pair of hunters up there that are quite dangerous. One of them has that electric axe, and then the other one has a threaded cane. And together they make for a pretty imposing duo. I was trying to take them on one at a time there, but that didn't quite work. These things are just straight up Cthulhu's. These horrible creatures are just not of this world. Boy, Bloodborne sure did, like, take off all of a sudden, didn't it? Like, remember back when we were fighting werewolves on bridges in, like, medieval kind of European villages? Remember that? And now look where we are. Look at what we're doing. We're a long way from home. And hey, speaking of the weirdness of the nightmare, if you look inside the mouths of these big Cthulhu thingies, these little gribblies, you can see that the mouths have, like, messengers inside. Like, why? Why do they have messengers just stuck in their mouths? Do they eat messengers? Is that their food? The way they scream when they die is also really unnerving. What is that? Oh no! Oh, and it's humming. Uh-oh. Oh, that frenzy bar's filling up. Oh! Nope. 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 Okay. Okay. It's fine. Everything's fine. In case you can't tell, this is the episode where I get a little bit distraught. Because, you see, there are a couple of ways that you can reveal to yourself that Bloodborne is full of Cthulhu shit. Like, they've been hinting at eldritch truth and great ones and madness and insight for this whole game now. But we haven't really ever gotten a solid taste of what makes Bloodborne an H.P. Lovecraft story. Well, going to the Nightmare Frontier is one of the ways that you can have that revealed to you. Now, one of the other ways is playing through the Chalice dungeons. Just progressing through the main game also will cause such revelations. Ooh! But one of the more interesting ways, I think, of revealing the Nightmare world is having 40 insight. Because, you see, all this insight we're collecting is not just peanuts. Like, we're not just putting cookies in the brain cookie jar here. The insight actually does change the game world. Like, at the end of the last episode, there was that church guy who had that eyeball lantern. Well, that happens when you hit a certain threshold of insight up there in the top right. Now, there are a couple... The effects aren't super huge and game-changing for the most part, but having 40 insight will just fill Central Yharnam and Cathedral Ward with those amygdala creatures. You know, the big creepy thingy that picked us up at the end of the last episode? Yeah, those are everywhere. It's just that we don't have enough insight to see them yet. And believe me, if we go back with 40 insight, it'll be a little bit scary where they put some of those things. So there you go. Bloodborne has finally played its hand. With the introduction of the Nightmare Frontier, now we have Cthulhu's coming from alternate dimensions. Who knows? There might be more lurking underneath the surface of Bloodborne, more, close to home Cthulhu stuff, but, yeah, we've got alien invasions going on. And personally, I'm not super happy about it. Every Souls game needs to have a poison swamp that makes you walk slower. I don't know why. Every single one of them has a poison swamp that makes you walk slower. And this is Bloodborne's, here in the Nightmare Frontier. I'm not too upset about that, because, whatever. It's not a super huge area. It's only a small part of a much larger area, and that's when I think it's okay. But, when that's the gimmick of the entire place, I don't know. It kind of loses me a little bit. Ugh. So when the silver beasts get kind of low on health, they will start crawling along the ground, and they look really weird. They look very unnatural. Oh, this area is messed up. So these deformed giants here will throw these big fucking boulders, but the boulders don't just hit you, they also explode into this big AoE, and the AoE is much, much larger than the boulder. So you gotta be very careful where you stand, because even after the boulder hits, you can still run into it and take damage, which is really messed up. It's really messed up. They are a crappy enemy. Also, my Tonitrus is at risk, so it's only a couple hits from breaking. So I kind of have to be a little bit careful how I use this thing until I get the chance to repair it. So we're going to be sticking with the saw cleaver for now, because I don't want to break my Tonitrus, because repairing things becomes way more expensive as soon as they actually break. So gotta be a little careful. So the Nightmare Frontier is a completely optional area. We don't actually have to go here. We're picking up cold blood flower buds, which is a very hard sentence to say, but it's also an item that you need to get into the later Chalice dungeons. So if you're going to do the Chalice dungeons, you do need to come here. In fact, you need to go to all of the optional areas for stuff like the yellow backbones and the afflicted organs that you need to create the later chalices. But other than that, this area is totally optional. And in fact, this is not, using the tonsil stone is not actually the only way to get here. The tonsil stone is the easiest, fastest way to get there. As I mentioned in the episode where we got the thing, Patches will give it to you as soon as you enter the forest for the first time. But way later on in the game, when we are vastly overpowered for this area, we will gain access to another way in case you miss Patches. Which is really hard to do, actually, because he will replace every single window until you finish Bergenworth, but you can miss him. What is that? There's like a whole series of buildings up there. Weird. I wonder if this is something that was built here, or if this is like the lecture hall and it got sucked into the nightmare as well. I don't know. Maybe someday we'll find out. Not like we can really climb this sheer cliff. Speaking of which, I really like the aesthetic of this area, where it's just like this weird stone geometry that doesn't really make any actual sense, but like you've also got these like geometric shapes, like the hexagonal stones in the ground. Of course, those are modeled after real stones that show up. I forget the name of the range, the cliffs where these show up, but these hexagonal stones are based on a real thing. This area is so cool. It really does just ooze atmosphere. And I mean ooze. I was not lying when I said ooze earlier. I like the fog. Cause we're pretty high up right now. We're like on top of a mountain, sorta, kinda. I mean, it's kind of like a hovering, floating mountain, but we're on top of a mountain right now. I mean, you can look down and you can see all those ship masts that are like just hanging out, sticking out of the fog, and it's like, it's very strange. What I really like about the Souls games, but that I think Bloodborne does best, is just dropping you into places and letting you figure out what is going on later. I think one of the reasons I like Bloodborne so much is that it has a nice balance of abstract, weird stuff and also like grounded stuff that I could probably see existing somewhere. Like Central Yarnum, like, it's laid out pretty weirdly, but it's also kind of it's also kind of reminiscent of real places, you know? Like, it's obviously inspired by real cathedral towns and stuff like that. But places like this is pretty clearly just the product of someone's imagination. And what an imagination they have, but even still, clearly this is not a place that could exist in reality. So by sticking to the sides here, you can mostly avoid the poison. You do still have to step in it to get out of this area, but yeah, you can mostly avoid the gimmick, which is kind of nice. Also, you can backstab these guys, which is a good way of invincibility framing your way through the boulders. Holy crap! Speaking of boulders, that guy's got impeccable aim. Jesus Christ. Oh no. Not another one of these things. So these things are called winter lanterns. And they're weird. They are comprised of a giant mass of messengers that has formed a big brain on top of what looks to be the doll's clothes with bloody accoutrements, including the finger digits that the doll has. If they see you, if they are looking at you, they will inflict frenzy on you, which is a status effect that basically implies that your character is trying to process more than their pitiful human brain can handle, and it's driving them nuts. And in the nightmare world here, that manifests as literal spikes appearing on your brain. Speaking of brains, interestingly shaped rock. I love it. I love this place because it really embraces like the idea of like just making the weirdest, craziest stuff. Like, this is the kind of stuff that could not appear in a Dark Souls game. I really like the Dark Souls games, right? Demon Souls included. But I feel like they are restricted. They are restricted a lot by their setting. So they can't do stuff like this. Well, bye. Like, they can't go crazy with the setting in the way that Bloodborne can. And that's something that I think is unique about this game. Like, as we are getting later on into Bloodborne, I think you're starting to see that Bloodborne really has this element of being like a crazy fever dream in its inspiration. And it's something that a lot of video games couldn't do because they are constrained by, you know, the environments that they start out with. Like these gravestones that are like dripping blood and they're cracked open like eggs to reveal like bleeding veins. Like, I don't know what any of that means. I'm sure somebody at From Software probably has an idea of what that represents, but what I think is kind of cool about it is that it doesn't really have to represent anything. It could just be weird and creepy, because we're in an alternate dimension, you know? Which is a weird sentence to say with such passion as I said it. Listen, man, we're just in an alternate dimension. So it's okay to have this shortcut elevator that just kind of hovers. 'Cause why not? This is just a shortcut back to the lantern. But it's also like a really cool, unique elevator. I don't know, this elevator doesn't show up anywhere else, so I think it's kind of cool looking. But alright. It looks like our final destination is that big brain rock, so... Okay. I guess we'll go over there, and then whatever happens, happens. Maybe Patches was right before I knocked him off the wall. Maybe we will receive a revelation, and we'll turn into a worshipper of these amygdala creatures. 'Cause boy, they sure do have numbers. What a lovely place this is. Oh no. Hello. Oh my, it's firing laser beams. So, let's just take stock here, okay? So we were teleported to another dimension. A dimension stuck out of time and space that sucks up parts of reality. To fight a creature that should not be, that fires laser beams and acid poison vomit, and it's trying to kill us. So why don't I punch it in the brain? Because that's really all I'm good for, isn't it? It's really intimidating too. Like, what an intimidating roar. I think this boss fight is cool. Another thing I think the Souls games do well is like boss fights against giant monsters that do weird shit. Like, that is another thing that these games excel at, I think. And boy, Bloodborne sure does have no shortage of those. Like, the amygdala boss fight is really cool, because the equipment that you bring to the boss fight greatly affects how easy the fight is for you. Like, if you have a gun, if you are a character that specializes in firearms, you can just shoot this thing in the head. And eventually it will, like, harden up its head so that it doesn't take as much damage. But yeah, like, stumbling this thing by shooting it in the head is, like, a very valid tactic. But as you can see by me swatting it in the leg there, it takes almost no damage in the body, so you kind of have to either hit it in the hands or wait until you have an opportunity to smack it in the head. It's kind of cool that it has like a localized like weak spot like that. I really like this fight. I think this boss makes great use of all of its crazy Cthulhu techniques for kicking your ass. I also like the ethereal music too. It's very like is very appropriate for fighting a creature from beyond our understanding. It's a little bit upset, understandably. I kind of came into its house here, didn't I? Oh, there you go. Yeah. Whoa. Have you ever been so upset at somebody? Have you ever wanted to beat up someone so bad that you will tear off your own arms? You know what? To be fair, it's making him way more dangerous. So, you know what? Fair enough, Amygdala. Oh, this thing is very dangerous, by the way. Especially in this last phase, where it, like, pulls off its own arms, because you might have noticed that it's doing a little bit more damage now that it's got some clubs to beat my ass with. I really like how the extended arms changes the fight, too, because it's got, like... Because now it's got a lot more range, so, like, your opportunities to hit it, like, start, you know, slowly draining away. And this is just one. Like, this is the thing. If we go back to Central Yharnam with 40 insight, these things are everywhere. Like, look at all the trouble we're having fighting one of these things. And like it's like in Dead Space with the big giant stupid necromorph moons. Like, you have so much trouble fighting one Amygdala. How are you gonna fight like 30 of these things? But yeah, I really like how this one little change in moveset, like, completely changes the fight. It's just really cool. Ouch. He put up a really good fight. I am surprised. This thing is just a living nightmare. And hey, look. As I mentioned, Lauren, the Ailing Lauren Chalice is our reward for completing the Nightmare Frontier. Really cool area. I really like this area. So that's it for this episode of Bloodborne. Next time, we will finally be heading to Byrgenwerth because there's nowhere else for us to go. I've put it off long enough. Let us reveal the secrets of this world. See you next time, everybody. Well, now we've gone and done it. With the reveal of the lecture hall and the Nightmare Frontier, we've been introduced to a whole lot of new concepts at once. This is where Bloodborne has really started to show its full hand, dropping the idea of multiple planes of reality right down on your character's big, dumb, insightless head. Way back when we first unlocked the forest, we gained the ability to reach this area from Patches, who is inexplicably a spider in this game. We could have gone to the lecture hall at any time, but I chose to save it for last because the multiple realities thing is a pretty important core part of Bloodborne, and it's about to become even more important. So what is going on here, I hear you ask? Boy, that's a good question. One that I don't really know how to answer in a succinct way. But I certainly will try. The lecture hall is an extension of the Byrgenwerth faction, which we can learn by reading the description of the student uniform we picked up. At some point in relatively recent history, they uncovered something they really shouldn't have in their quest for arcane knowledge, and the lecture hall becoming a portal between dimensions seems to be the result. We don't actually know what happened to the lecture hall, I don't think it's mentioned anywhere in the game, but we can make an educated guess that's probably pretty close. Patches seems to worship the amygdala, or maybe multiple amygdalas, implying to the player that you were brought to the Nightmare Frontier as a sacrifice for it. He masquerades this as an opportunity for you to learn eldritch knowledge yourself, surely aware that he's sending you to your death at the hands of a big ol' Cthulhu guy. Further evidence of this comes from his presence in the Nightmare Frontier itself, where he will boot you off a cliff in traditional Patches fashion if you don't take care of the problem before it becomes a problem. But anyway, the reason I bring this up is because of the implication behind this charade. We know from previous scholar-related dickery that these Byrgenwerth people are always going on and on about making contact with Great Ones, as well as obtaining chalices so that they can further explore the dungeons that run underneath the world. Well, wouldn't you know it, Amygdala is both a Great One and a holder of a chalice, although how it got that chalice I have no idea. So my guess, and it is just my guess because there's not much in the game to actually go on here, is that the scholars in the lecture hall contacted a Great One successfully. But the Great One was Amygdala, and it immediately sucked the scholars and the entire building into the Nightmare Realm, using the same magic it used on us. Now it sits between worlds as a little transit hub of sorts. That much we know for sure. So the amygdala itself. The amygdala is an almond-shaped group of nuclei located in the temporal lobes of the brain, in complex vertebrae, like humans. You have 2 of them. They're part of the limbic system, and have a primary role in memory, decision-making, and emotional responses. Funnily enough, the word amygdala is an interchangeable translation of the word tonsil. And this thing is all wrapped up in references to its namesake. Its head is in the shape of a tonsil and a delicious almond. It's found taking refuge inside a giant brain-shaped rock, and the amygdala itself is the part of the brain responsible for identifying potential threats and giving you nightmares. As it turns out, we have an alien invasion of sorts on our hands in Yharnam. We've actually run into a couple of these things on our travels so far. They're called lesser amygdalas, and they seem content to just hang out and snatch up any passersby. Well, this guy is the real deal. The big cheese. We've seen amygdalas before on our journey, even if we haven't actually made note of it. They're everywhere, in fact, particularly in Yahar Ghul. Amygdala-shaped statues line a lot of the stonework and imagery around Yharnam. It seems that some of the people of Yharnam already know they exist somehow, which doesn't bode well for us because up until this episode, we couldn't even see them with our own 2 eyes. And speaking of eyes, funny how it's got eyes on its brain. Eyes on the inside, some might say. Some kind of madman's knowledge, perhaps. Which leads us to the Nightmare Frontier itself. Clearly, it is not of this world. There are other hunters here, church hunters to be exact, meaning we're not the only ones that have either been bamboozled by Patches or stricken by curiosity. Other than that, though, we're totally alone in a pretty alien-looking place, save for an interesting building pretty far away on the horizon. From the ship masts sticking out of the fog below, to the suspiciously brain-shaped cliff face housing the amygdala, the Nightmare Frontier is mysterious, inexplicable, and hostile. Well, eventually it'll be explicable. Explainable. We'll get an explanation. But not for a very, very long time. My point is, you're dropped into the deep end and told to swim away from some very hungry sharks. And that's one of the things that I love most about this game, I think, and the Souls games in general. It's not afraid to plop you down in a completely foreign location and let you listen to the howling wind, the gurgling of poison rivers, the screaming monsters from beyond the stars, and let you figure out for yourself what the hell is going on. And we will figure out what's going on with the Nightmare Plane, but for now just enjoy the confusion and unease. It's what Bloodborne's all about.